Welcome to the Birth of a Mama podcast, a place where mothers can share their real life stories because every experience is real, every experience is valid. So let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 20. I have a big announcement. I am beta launching my brand new one-on-one private coaching program, and I'm so excited. It's called the Renewed Mama, and I only have space for enrolling 5 clients. This program is for mamas who are either about to have a baby, which is really the best time to start, or recently had a baby, so within the past, 0 to 2 years, who are wanting postpartum to be enjoyable. For mamas who want to feel comfortable in their body, confident in their food choices, and energized and present with their baby and their partner. They're tired of being exhausted, fatigued, feeling like they're dragging their feet through one of the most important periods of their life. If you have things like mood issues, low self-esteem, poor body image, poor communication with your partner, brain fog, or you're just generally not feeling like you, first of all, you're not alone. I've been there. And then this program is absolutely for you. So what it is a 3-month program. So we have 12 whole beautiful weeks together. We'll meet over video every other week for a total of 6 sessions, and you'll go through the 3 R's of my Renewed Mama framework, which includes reconnection, replenishment, and restoration. There's 2 price points to come in at, and both are at a very large discount since this is the beta launch. If this sounds interesting to you and you need to know more, go to the link in the show notes and book a free call with me where we can chat about your long-term health goals. I can answer any questions you may have, and we can see if this program will be a great fit for you. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Birth of a Mama podcast. Today, I have Katie Wheaton on the show. Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. I'm super excited because I've never done anything like this, but I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're here. So we'll have you start with telling the listeners about yourself and your family.
Okay, so hi, my name is Katie. I am married to my high school sweetheart, Zachary. We have 2 kids, Leo, this is what we call him, but at school and stuff, he goes by Leonard, which is his actual name, but it's super funny hearing an 8-year-old be called Leonard. And then Delilah, who I'll probably often refer to as Yaya, who's 5 years old. We're a pretty normal family. I joke that my life is super boring, but it's just kind of all the normal things that everybody does, working, playing, trashing the house, then whining about having to clean it up. That's our life.
Yeah, super normal. I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I can't believe that Delilah is 5. So for all the listeners, I was at your birth as your doula for that, and I'm sure we'll get into that, of course. Yeah. But it's crazy that it's been 5 years already. Time flies, and I have my own child now. It's what is happening?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Though. Yeah. Okay, so I love to ask my guests if they had to describe the transition to motherhood in 3 words, which would they choose? So which words would you choose?
So definitely overwhelming. I think everybody says that, but also calm and unbalanced. So calm just because when I had my firstborn, my husband was able to take 3 months off of work at the same time as me. And so it was just chill all day, every day. But it was still totally weird and not normal. But because I had that support that not many people get, it was just kind of okay, you do this now. Okay, you do that now. So.
Yeah, that's so nice to have 3 whole months off together. I feel like that's such a luxury. Unfortunately, I don't think that should be a luxury, but
it shouldn't be. No.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love unbalanced too because it's so unbalanced. Yeah, everything gets thrown off center and it goes haywire essentially, and you're just always trying to bring it back. I feel like that's
totally
all of motherhood.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so what were your expectations of postpartum? Did you go into pregnancy or even before getting pregnant ever like considering what postpartum would be like, or if you wanted to if you wanted it to look like a certain way or anything like that? Some people do, some people don't, and I just love to ask this and see.
Yeah. So like I don't know, from like the time I was 15, I knew I wanted to be a mom. Um but I think my expectations were kind of unrealistic. Like I don't even really know particularly what I was thinking it would be. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I guess I just got frustrated with how so many aspects of motherhood began to feel like work, which I know they are. I just felt like suddenly becoming like this unappreciated, unpaid, like governess essentially to a tiny dictator who, you know, always found like more crap for me to do without ever allowing me to handle any of my own business, like putting my own laundry in the basket or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was strange. And again, I don't really know what I expected, but like once I was there, I was like, this is not quite what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that that's really common to enter it, even if you had contemplated what it might be like. A lot of times it's based off of things that are unrealistic. Like we don't really have anything to go off of unless we've seen real life postpartum through someone else, you know? But other than that, I feel like what we have growing up as little girls and teenagers and young adults is media. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it's glamorized and, you know, it's just not portrayed like the whole, you don't get the whole picture a lot of the time. So I felt very similar to you where I was kind of like, what the hell? Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, why is
Right.
it so hard?
Well, and I think
So,
too, even within like socializing with people who have just had a baby, like either like as mothers, like, you know, when we have people come over or when we go over and hang out with people, I think we also still try to project that like glamorized, like, look, I've got it all together. Look at these like, I don't know, fancy baby bento box snacks that I made or things like that. So even within, you know, like your own little like tribe, community, whatever you want to call it, I think we even still kind of hide like the hard parts and of motherhood, you know?
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm guilty of this even still, even though my
Oh yeah.
mission is like to unglamorize it and, you know, unveil the truth. I feel like I still catch myself trying to act like everything's so great all the time. And yeah, exactly. Make the perfect little cute lunches and make sure the
Hmm.
house is super clean, even if it means I don't get to rest and I'm super stressed out, like, and burnt out, you know? So
Totally.
yeah, that's such a good point that we need to, we individually can also do a better job by keeping it more real, you know, and
Right.
showing our friends and telling our friends the truths. I think it's hard because we feel like we're complaining or we feel like we're like dumping this onto someone else, you know, and like being a negative Nancy or just, you know, insert, you know, whatever here. But I think that that's how the change starts and that
Yeah.
the expectations come down to where they should be because I like, you know, how it's just going to keep perpetuating itself like the longer that we just keep doing that. But it's
Totally.
so hard to not, you know, because everyone does. And then you feel like the weird one when you're telling the truth. And the truth is not always beautiful and
Pretty.
glamorous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You feel
Totally.
like people are going to judge you too, I think, you know, if you don't have it all together because it seems like everyone has it all together because we're all just basically lying all the time about having it together.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, Love it. That's such good input. So it sounds like you had high expectations of what it might be like, or you didn't really have like, you know, a grasp of what the reality would be.
I guess I don't know. I just like I said, like I remember one day just waking up and was like, I need to be a mother, which is really weird for like a freshman in high school to be going around like, I just want to have kids. But I guess I just felt like it would feel right all the time and like all of the hard work that I would do would just be done joyfully. And I was wrong. You know, like
Yeah.
I guess I just felt because I had such a strong desire to be a mom that magically all the things that come with it were also going to be like what my heart's desire were, essentially.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking kind of like, what did I expect, And I kind of thought the same of like, well, it'll just bring me so much happiness and joy naturally that none of that will matter. And even
Yeah.
if I think that, oh, it's supposed to be hard, like it won't be for me. Like there's always, you always think you're the exception, or that you can be the exception, or it will be different for you because you have this drive or this desire, or this like innate feeling. Um, yeah, I think that's a really good point
It's
too.
odd, but like, I mean, doing the dishes is still doing the dishes, and like putting laundry away still sucks. And now it's not just you that you have to clean up after. And it's like, oh man, dang it. Like, I hate doing it for myself as it is. Like, now I gotta do this for
Yeah.
someone else too. So,
Right. It's like, logically, if you think about having an actual human child, like all of it, like from pregnancy and growing it. I don't know. I thought pregnancy would be this like amazing thing, and I would be like drinking all these like healthy smoothies and juicing and doing like Kundalini yoga. I don't even know what I was thinking. I thought it was just going to be like some fairy tale that and then like from the get-go it wasn't any of, even from pregnancy, like it just wasn't, birth wasn't what I expected, like nothing was what I expected. Like what was I really expecting? It's not like I really sat down and was like thinking it through. It was just kind of like, no, it's just going to be great, like it's going to be so good because I want it so bad. It's like, because I
right.
want it so bad, it's just going to be good, even though, like you said, those things that already aren't bringing you happiness and joy, like chores, are only going to be harder, because now you don't only have to do them for yourself, but you have to do them while carrying and or watching another person, and also adding their load to yours. So
Yeah.
how logically did you think that was going to make you happier?
Right.
It's like, what?
Silly. Silly.
So silly. It's so silly. But
Yeah.
there's so much good. There's so much good too. I don't
Totally.
want people thinking it's like, oh my God, it's just all chores
No,
and
no, no.
horribleness.
I still am so glad that I made the choice to become a mom.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just do love to complain. Like,
Me too.
it's how I
I mean,
process.
yeah, it's acceptable and valid. All right, so we'll start with either one of your pregnancies, if you want to go chronologically, or you want to go like, most recent, and then we can work your way back, however you want to do it. But you can give, talk about how your one of your pregnancy wins, or you could talk both and compare,
Oh,
however
okay.
you want to
Yeah.
share.
So
Yeah.
so I mean, if we start with Leo, my first pregnancy, I was absolutely disgusting, or at least that I felt that way. I like was visibly pregnant at the time that most people even find out they're pregnant, at 8 weeks. And I was so frustrated because I had to tell coworkers before, like at 8 weeks, and I was like, only because for the last 2 weeks they'd been like, "Oh, Katie, someone's been eating lots of pizza," or this and that. "Oh, you look like you're getting." I was just like, "No, I don't want to talk to you guys about this yet." Just because I was paranoid, I wanted to wait until the 12-week mark before I told anybody. So, like, but so yeah, I popped super fast, and I had like the worst swelling everywhere, in my face, my nose. Like, I had to wear those breathe right strips my entire pregnancy with Leo because I was constantly stuffed up. And my feet, like, I could not fit into flip-flops. I broke flip-flops because my feet were so massive. I never had preeclampsia though, even though like every time I would go into the doctor, they were like, "Oh, you're pretty swollen." Yeah, I know. But my blood pressure was always great, thank God. But, um, you know, and it was really just, yeah, you know, like it was not cute. Whereas with Delilah, like that, being pregnant with her, it was easier, I guess. I don't know if I was just so much more distracted by like having a toddler running around, that I didn't have time to notice certain things. But I didn't have the swelling that I did with Leo, with her. But I mean, really, aside from the swelling of Leo, like I wasn't There was nothing. My pregnancies were really boring. I didn't feel super tired, except for the first trimester with a toddler running around. That one was hard. Um, but yeah, I mean, pregnancy was pretty fine. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing too exciting
Well,
with
that's
the two
good.
of
It's
them.
kind of
Yeah,
it's kind of good when it's, boring. I mean, it's like
totally.
not
No news
exciting
is
to
good
talk about,
news.
but good for your health and everything, which is
Yeah.
always a good thing. Yeah. Um, and then, okay, so then we can jump into how did your birth experiences go? And you can kind of compare and contrast those
Yeah.
two.
So, Leo's birth experience was not my favorite. All the women on my mom's side of the family, like have like wildly fast labors. With I think the longest labor that anybody had out of all four of her sisters was 6 hours from like start to finish. With most
It's
of them
very fast. Yeah.
averaging, yeah, averaging 2 or 3. I had multiple cousins almost or born in cars on the way to the hospital. So like I had it in my head, like just based off of all these anecdotes from my mom and my aunts, that I was gonna be just like them. I was gonna have like super fast labor. Like, yeah, it would hurt like to push the baby out, but not really like that big a deal. And so, of course, with that in mind, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a natural birth. It's gonna be all good. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Just with my inexperience, Zachary had just come off of an overnight shift the night that I went into labor. And apparently everyone was having a baby the day that Leo was born, because I think I saw like a doctor, nurse, midwife, whatever, for like, I don't know, out of my 19 hours of labor, I think I had someone with me for like 2 hours total. So this hospital was
Wow.
super busy. And so I ended up getting like an epidural for like the last 8 hours of Leo's birth. And then, while I was in labor, he pooped. And so then they had to whisk him away and all of that stuff. And so it was traumatic. But with Delilah, things were great. You were there. I hired a doula, Natalie, obviously, because like I don't know, like I guess I went with a doula versus like having like a mom there, or like a really close friend, just because like it's such a intimate experience, and I kind of wanted it to feel like it was just mine and Zach's like memory or experience, in a way. And so with hiring someone like outside, that felt like it gave us like kind of the anonymity that I wanted in, like not having to have other people kind of tell my birth story. I mean, because I've had family members who have, been at other people's births, and friends too who have seen other people have babies. And like I guess I didn't realize it, and now I'm just saying it. But I didn't love that other people got to talk about someone else's experience in something that's so intimate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Um,
that totally makes sense. With hiring someone that's essentially a stranger, right, until you
yeah,
get to know them, they're coming into your life for that specific time and then they leave, and
yeah,
it's like their profession. So, and they have that experience to bring to like support you in a way that maybe like a mom or a friend wouldn't. And I think it's easy for someone that's close to you to get really excited and like forget that they're supposed to be supporting you, or something like that. Whereas with your someone like a doula, who's that's like the purpose of it, and yeah, I think that totally makes sense.
yeah, totally. And so, with that, basically, like I got exactly what I wanted with Delilah. Like labor's never fun, but oddly enough, we found out that being in the water made things not awful, to the point where even like the hospital staff, because the hospital I gave birth at, they had like policies on you can labor in the tub, but you can't give birth and you can't stay in there once your water's broken. But my water did break. And opposite of Leo's, Delilah's birth, nobody was giving birth that day. I had 2 midwives with me at most times, plus a doula, plus Zach. And so, like, after my water broke, they, reluctantly were like, okay, it's time to get out. But after a while, they could see that it was just so much harder on my body that they were kind of like, I saw them kind of like whispering to each other, and they were like, do you want to go back in? And instantly, because I remember you were timing, and like suddenly my contractions were like minutes apart instead of like right on top of each other when I was out of the water. Yeah. And so, yeah, then I had a big contraction, and everybody was like, it's happening. And so I had like 6 people airlift me out of this labor tub. And then she was there, like within like, it felt like 30 seconds. It was probably more like 2 or 3 minutes, but it happened so fast with her. And it was, pretty much what I had hoped for. It wasn't glamorous by any means. But like, I got that experience of being able to let my body do what it was designed to do, and push a baby out of my body without anything keeping me from feeling that happening. So, yeah, I mean, comparatively, Delilah's birth was top notch. I don't know that I would ever want to give birth again, but not necessarily because of that experience. I think I just know, like, 2 kids is it.
Yeah, no, you said it wasn't glamorous, and I was thinking, like, it was so beautiful. I had that thought right before you said it wasn't glamorous. I mean, birth is, like, not glamorous, right? It's, like, primal, and it's messy, and it's, like, dirty, and it's, like, chaotic and loud, and
I think
sometimes be quiet, but
that's one of the reasons I felt like it wasn't glamorous, just because, like, I can still in my head like hear myself, and I know that I couldn't see myself, but I can imagine myself like totally naked, like on all fours, like with 6 people in the room just watching me like grunt and all this stuff.
You were amazing. Like I remember being like, oh my God, I was like crying because I was like, she's so amazing. Like, she's doing it. Because you just like owned it, and you did what you had to do. Like you said, your body did what it had to do, and you were so internal, which is really where you need to be, right? Is like with yourself and just kind of in your own little flow. A lot of times we get like pulled out with like lots of questions or lots of stuff happening and like, things going on externally. But I feel like you did a really good job of just staying with yourself and just doing what kind of intuitively felt good to you. And yeah, I feel like the nurses were really, and like the midwives and everything were really adaptable, and I feel like they really could tell what was working for you and what wasn't, which was great. And they were kind of like being like, okay, we'll let her do this because we think that this is actually suiting her better. Which I loved that, because a lot of times you don't get that in the hospital. Like they have their protocols and their policies, and they're like, sorry, like don't care, you have to get out, or you got to do this, or you have to birth on your back or whatever. So
yeah, it's weird because I had both kids at the exact same hospital, and two, like I had one was a super clinical, like this isn't working, so we're gonna do this, and the other one was like, just don't tell anyone, this is fine. So yeah
even within the same, like you said, the same hospital, it can be, it's dependent on the people then, I guess, really. It's like who are the nurses and the doctors or the midwives that you get, because they're gonna ultimately be the ones calling the shots. And it's like, are they by the book and not willing to kind of be flexible to support their patient, or are they gonna kind of maybe bend the rules if they want to or need to, because they know it's going to be a better outcome for their patient? Like ultimately that's better healthcare. But I understand there being like rules and regulations too. But yeah, I was very happy for you after that experience. Of course, I wasn't there for Leo's birth, so I just heard of what you had told me and your dreams for the next time, and so happy that you feel really good about that.
Yeah, yeah, and like you were a huge help because Zach, he's sweet, but he's not a girl. He doesn't understand, and he's more passive and like kind of like a typical man. Like, so tell me what to do, and it's like
Yeah.
I need you to know what to do. So,
Right.
I
Yeah.
think you helped both of us to kind of relax because then I didn't feel like I had to coach him because you got to coach both of us essentially through it. So,
Yeah. And you guys did great. You were such a great team. And that's really common for the male partner to be like, tell me what to do. I don't know. I'm not sure.
right.
Especially in the moment, because it can be a little nerve wracking, especially for a partner who's obviously concerned about your well being and the well being of the baby. And it kind of gets really energetic, like the energy
Yeah.
can rise quickly and it can get a little bit like anxious feeling. So, yeah, it's nice to have someone that can kind of just hold space and like be grounding and when it comes to it, like tell you what to do if that's what is needed. Like I loved that we figured out that you liked the water because I remember when we were chatting before you were in labor during, prenatal visits, you were like, yeah, I'm not really like a water person. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, okay, so we won't do water. Like we won't worry about, asking for a tub at the hospital or getting you in the bath or the shower when I come over to the house or whatever. And then we tried it and you were like, oh, actually, this is nice.
Yeah. I know. I was super surprised because like I'm not a bath person. Like I'll go swimming and stuff, but like I don't know. It's just never been my thing. But yeah,
Yeah, you
it
just never
was
know.
the best. Like
Yeah.
100% would recommend.
Right. People say like water births, like the water is like then nature's epidural or whatever, but it's also different for everybody. Like some people don't like being in the water. You just never know what you're gonna like when you're in labor until you're in labor, and then you're like, okay, let's try this, and
Yeah.
then either it's a yes or it's a no. It's just so dependent on the person and what they're feeling in that moment. Um, all right, so let's jump into postpartum. So you can keep doing the compare contrast. I think that works great.
Yeah.
How are the moments like right after birth with both of them, and like when did you get to leave the hospital and go home, and then how are those first couple of weeks?
Yeah. So again with Leo because he had passes and meconium, basically they like when he first came out they like set him on my chest just to like wipe him down and then start like trying to clear him off. But then like they basically cut the cord and like said we got to go, we got to take him. And so like I looked at Zachary, you need to go, like you can't stay with me. And so he's and so then I was alone, doing the placenta and getting stitched up and all those fun things. And I didn't actually get to really meet Leo until probably 2 or 3 hours after he was born. So that was hard. Being in the hospital waiting for him to, like be all cleared. He stayed a little while in the nursery, but it felt like a long time, but I think he was probably only there for like less than 3 days, it was like 2.5 days. So it wasn't super long. And then we got to go home, and like I said, everything was just kind of chill. He nursed really well, and like aside from all of the, I guess, downstairs care, for lack of a better term, because that wasn't fun. But I mean, otherwise, everything was like really kind of cool. It was just, the three of us all kind of hanging out, getting used to what life means with that. But then, and Leo really liked Zach. So he really enjoyed being with his dad. So that gave me like necessary breaks of not being, a dairy cow or, having to hold him or rock him or anything like that. Whereas with Delilah, she was, we got to do the like 1 to 2 hours of like skin to skin after birth because that was part of my birth plan. And there were days where I'd look at Zachary and I'd be like, I regret skin to skin. You should have taken her right away. Because she would not, like, she was one of those Velcro babies. She never wanted to be apart from me. And she wanted to nurse constantly, even though she was horrible at it for like the first month. According to like all the lactation consultants and like newborn doctors, basically our anatomy didn't fit well, and I just had to wait for her mouth to get bigger. We visited lactation consultants a lot, but like she ended up figuring it out, thank goodness, because it was really what I really wanted with Leo. With Leo, I nursed up until the time I was actually pregnant with Delilah with him, so close to 2 years, or just over 2 years. And Delilah, I was able to go just about 2 years with her as well. So that was something that was really important to me. But yeah, those first couple of weeks home with her were rough because, there was one time she spit up and it was totally pink because I was just bleeding and everything. But everything worked out, and she figured out how to do it, and I healed, and so it's all good now. But yeah, that was what it was like those first couple of weeks with both of those guys.
That's really remarkable that you were able to go so long, especially with so much difficulty in the beginning. What would you say, like, if there's someone out there listening that's going through that and they're like, it's really painful and I'm bleeding and I just want to give up, it's so hard, and they're seeing lactation consultants, like, what do you think helped you to like keep going? Was it the fact that you knew you could be successful because you had done it before, or like was there something else?
As a fear, honestly, like, I guess we were like in a not great financial spot, and I knew that, like, I had seen formula at Costco, and it was like $40, and I'm like, if at the rate that she's eating, we'd have to buy these things once a week, and we can't afford that. And on top of that, I do not trust myself to be responsible to like clean things regularly or quickly enough, especially because she had to constantly be held or like attached to me. And so, I was really scared that somehow that was going to like put this huge burden on our family because I hate to say it this way, but because I failed to figure out how to work it out. But I think a lot of it was just kind of like really determined because I didn't want to put my family in that position, I guess. So yeah, it's a horrible way to think about it, but
I get that. That's valid though, right? Like, and that's a lot of pressure on you. It worked out, and that's great, and hopefully you weren't suffering for too long.
No, it felt like forever.
But it is really common. It is
totally.
It's really like I struggled. I've talked to so many, like most people who've come on the podcast have said, oh yeah, it was either, they had to give up eventually because their mental health, or like, there was at least some level of struggle and like discomfort and or pain in the beginning, at least for a couple of weeks, if not months, of like trying to figure it out. It's you think like it's going to be this natural process that's going to be so simple because that's what it seems like it would be, right? Like, you're a woman and that's like what you do once you have a baby, is like you feed your baby, but it's not always that simple. And you said the small mouth thing. Like, I remember my daughter, they also told me like, oh yeah, her mouth is too small, like it just needs to, as she gets older and gets bigger, it'll get easier, kind of thing. I'm like, well, what do I do in the meantime? Like,
I think with her also, I ended up getting mastitis 3 times because I had like a super heavy letdown on one side and she would drown. Like, that was basically what the lactation consultant told me. She said, so you've got a really high letdown. You're producing a lot. And
you're drowning your baby.
She can't take it. You need to like, and so then I would have to like I was so frustrated because then I would have to like nurse myself, like, I'd have to milk myself before letting
did you pump at all? Like use a Haka or an electric pump of any kind?
Yeah,
With her, or
I ended up mostly using, like, there was a handheld pump that came with the electric one that I bought, or actually that the hospital gave me. I ended up the hospital gave me one, but then they told me I couldn't give back the the manual pump parts for obvious reasons. So I ended up keeping that, and that was actually like the easiest way for me to just express breast milk, like in the beginning. And then, I tried with her to get, she never took a bottle, not once ever in her entire life.
Wow.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it does make it easier in terms of like traveling with them or like being out and about, but also there's pros and cons, right?
Yeah,
Like, you have
I
to whip a boob out all the time, essentially.
Yeah,
But
meant
you don't
awesome
have to clean
sarcastically.
bottles.
But
Got it.
yeah. So yeah, there was definitely some frustration with that, because when she was 3 months old, I went back to work part time, but there were 2 days a week I would work full time, and so she would go without for a full 8 hours, 8.5 hours. And so then, we slept all night together, whipping one out, then flopping over to the other side and doing the other. So she got what she needed, just at night instead of during the day on those days that I worked. So
Yeah, you made it work. I actually loved the side lying like on a couch or in the bed position, because it's like lazy and comfortable because you don't have to hold them. They're just kind of laying there and you're laying there and you just whip a boob out and you're like, all right, this is great.
yeah,
I learned of that later in my journey, and I was like, how did I not? I mean, when she was really little, it wouldn't have worked because she was too small, and I don't have the biggest of boobs, so they don't like hang down very nice. I had to like kind of like get it over there. But once that worked, I was like, oh my God, I wish this was how I could have been doing it the whole time, because I really enjoyed that position.
Yeah, that was mine and Delilah's life. Like, that's all we did.
I love it. Well, that's amazing that you were able to breastfeed for 2 years with both of them. How did like sleeping go, and how did you feel emotionally in those first like few weeks?
Yeah. Leo was, like I said, so he was, and always has been, like my independent baby. He was okay sleeping in his own crib or in like the little bassinet next to the bed. Whereas, like I said, Delilah, we were lucky if we could put her down and she would sleep for a full 20 minutes by herself. So yeah, sleeping arrangements, she like at a certain point, I just stopped trying to get her to sleep on her own. And so we totally co-slept with her. It just was not worth the frustration or the energy. And, we had so many people like talk to us about sleep training and this and that. And I know that it works for so many people. I mean, I was Ferberized and, I'm fine. But I just couldn't take it. Not necessarily because like it hurt my heart. I mean, there were times that it did. But I think like it with Delilah anyway, like I just like most of my emotions were like anger and rage. And it would just make me too angry to have to like, well, great, now I have to listen to you cry for 5 minutes. And now that I've rubbed your back and said I love you, nice to you, now I have to listen to you scream for 10 more minutes. And it just wasn't worth the emotional toll that it took on me. And so, was it annoying that I had to like nurse her and snuggle her to sleep all the time and basically nap with her kind of when I had Leo running around? Yeah, but I wasn't like, so I didn't have that. So it just wasn't worth it to me to do that. I think like Leo was boring. He's easy. Emotionally, like things were okay. But like, and I think when you have a second kid, I think during especially those first couple of weeks, first months, you really mourn for the relationship that you used to have with your firstborn. Because I remember the first like week or so when we came home with Delilah, Leo was really sad that I was always occupied with the baby. But then it got to the point where when I did have moments where I was able to like pass her off or set her down, Leo wasn't necessarily as excited to hang out with me, and it just didn't feel the same. And so it was like heartbreaking. And I don't like talking about it because it's that was a really emotional time for me, because suddenly, like, my little best friend, um you know I wasn't as needed the same way that I was before. So, and I'm sure based on my rage and all of that stuff, I had to have been suffering from some sort of postpartum stuff, never formally diagnosed, but that was super hard. Watching him and hearing him say like, "No, it's okay, Mom. I'm just gonna play by myself," or and like the times where I like kind of want to like get all up in his business, like, "What are you doing?" Like, "No, Mom." So that was really hard to kind of see that shift in our relationship, to where I was like kind of the center of it before, and now I'm just one part of it, And I guess, I mean, I'm sure parents go through that with every stage of their kid's life, because they eventually start to, I don't want to say grow apart, but become their own person, kind of apart from you. You know what I mean? So that was
Yeah.
that was a tough kind of transition, for sure.
Yeah, I imagine, like, we're considering having a second, and I have all those types of thoughts going through my head, and I try to read up on in mom groups that have multiples and things like that, like, how was their experience when the second one came, how did the first one react? Because I fear that too, of like, how, is it gonna, I've heard a lot of like, it makes you view your firstborn as so much bigger, or like so much older, or like so much more independent before you're ready for that,
Yeah.
because it's, once you have the newborn, of course the newborn is the baby now. And even if they're not a baby, they're a toddler, they're still like a baby in your eyes, and like they're your baby, and they kind of have to grow up a little maybe quicker than they would have if they would have been an only child. And every kid is different in how they respond to it, I guess. But yeah, I'm really glad you shared the anger, because I think that that's an emotion that is also very common, that women are ashamed to talk about and say that they feel. But we're human, and we're fully capable of being angry and rageful. And I also had those feelings in motherhood. Like, it would get to the point where I was like, I would want to like walk away from her and like leave her in the crib and just be like, I can't do this. Like, I'm just so angry. Like, I can't even be near her because I can't like see her right now, and I can't hear her noises, or I'm going to like lose my shit, essentially. Right. So I would be like, I have to leave, almost like it felt dangerous to be there. And I think a lot of women feel that, or have felt that at some point in motherhood, and they don't share those things. And so then when we do feel that way, it feels really scary, like we're the only ones. But yeah, I just want to make that clear to anyone listening, that you're not alone in that, and
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah, it was super intense. Like, I mean, like, I 100% understood about shaken baby after having my second. Like, it was, yeah, there were times where I wanted nothing more than to just be able to throw her across the room, because she was pissing me off, because I don't even know. I don't even know what it was. But it was just, and it was like really intense. And, like, and saying it out loud, like calling your mom and being like, yeah, I basically hate your granddaughter. Like, oh, you can't do that. Or at least like, my mom is just like so sweet, and I, like she would, oh no, and it's like, so yeah, it was weird. So,
Yeah.
so strange because, and I'm not like a violent person, and when I get angry, usually it turns into sadness, like almost instantly. And so to be able to hang on to such intense like anger and resentment towards this completely innocent baby that doesn't know what is going on aside from their needs. Yeah, it felt really like confusing, and like, how am I supposed to deal with this? Because it's not like I can just, you know, leave them alone. So,
Right. Right. Exactly. And that just kind of snowballs it all, right? Because you can't, you need a break, essentially, is
yeah.
like what your body and your brain are screaming for, and you can't take one depending on the situation, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's so real. I had to start therapy because of it, because I was like, I can't function like this. I started regretting becoming a mom and thinking that I
Oh,
wasn't cut out for this, and it was hard,
yeah.
like it was really hard to have those feelings and feel like I wasn't meant to be a mom, because I'm having these hard emotions that keep coming up. But like it's not normal or healthy, but it is common, and there is
Yeah.
help out there. People just have to know like when to reach out for it, essentially, because I wish it was given a little bit more attention, instead of like you get asked to fill out this questionnaire at your 6 week checkup, and it's like, if you don't answer the questions in this right way, you don't get triggered to get resources for help. And a lot of times, again, it comes back to that shame. You might be lying on that questionnaire. So it's hard to talk about these things, but it's so important. So I really appreciate you opening up and sharing
Yeah.
sharing
And the
that.
thing about that 6 week mark, like for me, again, I got super lucky, and Zach was able to take off tons of time with both kids. And so for me, at the 6 week mark, when he was still home, those things were never an issue. It just became when I was finally like on my own. And so those things didn't show up really until probably 3 months in. And so, like I feel like there should be more than just a 6 weeks. Like, oh, look, your uterus is back to the right size. Your incision is all healed up. You can exercise and have sex now. Like, I feel like there should be another one probably somewhere in there, just to, because, as hard as the newborn stage is, it's also kind of like the best because there's only so much that needs to be done. You change diapers, you bathe every once in a while, and you feed them. Whereas, like there's a lot more stuff as they get older and more independent and able to do things. And it takes a lot out of moms. So
Yeah.
there should be like a 3 or 4 month checkup too, in my mind.
Totally. And even a checkup before the 6 week mark as well. I think there should be like, I just think the whole system is flawed in terms of maternal care after you have a baby. But I wanted to ask, what was Zachary doing at the time, or maybe he's still doing it, that allowed him to take that much time off?
So he works retail, always has, and with both kids, he was currently at Home Depot, and just because of FMLA, um, he was able to take the full 12 weeks off with each kid, and so there's that benefit. Unfortunately, because I work at a place where I don't have that built in, I had to basically like store up all my sick leave for however long I possibly could. With Delilah, I'm a teacher, and so I conveniently planned for her to be born towards the end of the school year. So I'd use up all of my maternity leave through, like the end of the school year. And then I got summer off. And that was the reason we were in such a financial bind, because, I wasn't getting paid over the summer. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the FMLA, like that was like the best thing that could have happened for our family, because I'm a weenie, and like, I got married because I need a partner. I need someone to help balance me out, and he's such a calming presence. And he's just so like, yeah, it'll be fine, it'll work out, don't worry about it. And so he, I needed him big time, and so it was really nice to have him.
I love that. You're not a weenie. You're a human, and you were never meant to do it alone. We were never meant to raise babies and children by ourselves. Period. So I just want to put that in there. But yes, I love that. I love hello.
Delilah decided to see what we were doing. She had to look.
She's like, what are you doing, Mama? Hi.
Here she is.
You're on a podcast.
You say hi.
Special guest. Hi, sweetie.
You say hi.
What are you doing? Hi. You're so big. Oh my gosh. I'm just like staring at her and tripping out up on it. I saw you when you were a little tiny cute newborn baby. Okay. Did you want to share if I don't know if sometimes people say things shift for them at a certain point, like 6 months or like 10 months. Did you have that feeling at any point?
Well, so like with Leo, like physically, I remember, like with Leo, I didn't, I had like major body issues, because I'd never been pregnant before. I'd never had a baby before. And just the fact that like I continued to look pregnant for so long. I think like I remember weighing myself the day I got home after having Leo, and the first like 9 months after I had him, I stayed about the same weight as when I got home from the hospital. And I ended up at around 6 months just being like, this is just it. Like, this is the body that I'm gonna have. And I remember like going and buying my first pair of jeans after he was born, and it was like 4 sizes up from what I had normally worn, and just like kind of accepting it, like because the time leading up to that, I was so frustrated because I was like, I'm nursing, like I'm supposed to be dropping weight, like it's nobody's business, like it's just supposed to be melting off of me, and it didn't. And I remember that was like my first kind of I guess introduction to, I guess, self-love and talking to yourself positively versus what we were taught as young girls to think about our bodies and things like that. And it just got to the point where I was like, yeah, it's good. You know what? It is what it is. I can, I can eat healthfully and exercise for my health. And I don't need to necessarily have a physical outcome to it aside from health, and so that for me was probably the biggest shift that I felt like once we got to like kind of midway through that first year with either kid. But yeah, but still, yeah.
No, go ahead.
I don't know.
I was just gonna say, you're so wise for that, for like coming to that on your own, like, well, just this like self-acceptance and exercising and eating for health and not for the purpose of like changing your body size or shape, because I think that's really hard to do, to accept that. Like that's really hard. We're fed constantly unrealistic body standards, even after having a baby. Like we're expected to bounce back and jump back into our normal lives and go back to being the person that we once were before we had babies, but we're not that same person. So why is there this expectation that we should look, behave, act, and be the same? I think it's just poppycock. Yeah. But we believe it because that's what we're told all the time and what we were fed our entire lives. So having to unlearn that can be really challenging for some. So yeah. I'm really glad that you were able to do that.
Well, I can't necessarily say that I have totally bought into it, but I know that I had to say it to myself and write it down out loud and talk to other people about how, like, because the more you say something, the more, like, eventually you're going to believe it, right? Like, if you look at yourself
Yeah.
in the mirror and say, like, damn, girl, you're hot. Like, eventually you're going to believe yourself. So, like, of course,
Yeah.
I still have my own issues, or, like, if um, like we've had a couple of family deaths, and then, weight fluctuations there. And, if I start changing the way that I exercise or eat, when things don't happen instantly, I'm like, yeah, this is worthless. What's the point? And it's like, no, no. You can't think that way. And so it's really hard to tell yourself those things, but it's important to tell yourself those things, even if you don't believe yourself, because the more that you say it out loud, the more that you say it in your own head, the more that you tell other people that that's how you feel, it makes it easier to believe it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the thoughts that we have is creates the emotions that we feel, and that creates the incentive for us to do whatever we do. It like motivates us to do a behavior or an action. So if we're having those thoughts, whether or not we truly believe them or not, but if we're constantly saying it and
Yeah.
thinking about it and talking about it, like that's going to motivate us to do things differently, which is how we're going to get there eventually, right? Just doing that over and over again. So you're totally right. Like that is actually exactly how it works. It's almost like a fake it till you make it kind of
Totally.
approach.
That's like,
But eventually, hopefully the goal is that you will believe it one day, and then you can then, once you're at that level, then you can like help other people get to where
totally.
you were, how you got there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's so much easier said than done. But what I like to tell people that I work with or that I coach is that, like your weight is a number. Your weight is this thing that you don't have direct control over. Like, I can't just go downstairs and like drop 10 pounds, right? Like, I can't just walk outside and drop 10 pounds, but I can go downstairs and drink water or put on a workout video or, choose to add something green to my plate for lunch. Like, those are things I can act on and actually actively change versus like I can't just snap my fingers and my weight is different. So weight can still be a part of the picture, or you could still have a goal of weight loss, but just not making that like the main objective and focusing on things that you can actually do. And then what happens a lot of times is that weight comes off as a byproduct. So yeah, it's just kind of a reframe of our perspective of like what we think we need to change and what's important and like what to focus on. But it sounds like you have figured that out somewhat, which is amazing, because I think moms more than any population struggle with that so much, because pregnancy changes our bodies and birth changes our bodies, and just being a mom that's chasing around a kid that influences everything we do, including what we eat and how we move our bodies. So giving ourselves some grace when we can is also really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go, Katie.
Yay.
So let's see. Do you feel like you could have been better supported in postpartum? It sounds like, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you felt pretty supported. But is there anything that you feel like you wished you had done differently, or that, you could have changed?
Yeah. So, like, obviously, in like my home, like, I had the best support that I probably could have asked for, like, from my husband. And like, I guess the support that I wish I could have had, or I wish was better or different, was, and it's going to sound odd, but to not hear about other people's experience. I tend to process my feelings through venting or complaining, or however you want to phrase it. But I remember so often like having talks with family and friends about my hardships during, like the early days of motherhood, or even those days when, like they're getting older and like they should be able to do this or that on their own and they're not, or whatever. And there was always and I think it's just normal human desire to relate, to talk about your similar experiences. Um, but I felt like so often it was their experience, or in their telling of their experience, was to point out that mine's not as bad, or they had this same problem and this is how they fixed it. Um, and in a lot of those moments, I was just talking in order to process how I was doing. Sometimes, like, all I wanted was someone to say, like, man, yeah, that's really hard. Like, and I'm so sorry that you're going through it. If there's anything I can do, like, let me know. Or perhaps offering, like, I'm not doing anything Thursday night. Do you want to, like, walk around Target for an hour by yourself and I watch your baby, or something like that? Versus, having friends come in and try to solve your problems or tell you how, well, it's really not that bad because, back in my day, your father had 2 days off, or whatever kind of stuff. And so that was the only place where I felt like sometimes my feelings were kind of shut down, or, because it's like either you don't have it at that bad, or let me tell you how you're doing it wrong. Or at least that's how I would process those moments.
Yeah. I think that's, yeah, I think that people that care about us, friends, family, right, when they're in that with us, like, they just want to help. And I think that I see this in relationships too. I see it in my own relationship with my husband. Like, he'll complain about something to me and he probably just wants me to say, just to listen and be like, wow, I'm so sorry you're going through that. That sounds really hard. But what do? I jump to being like, what's the solution? Like, I want to fix his problem, right? So it's like, people want to, like, they don't want us to be suffering. And so I think it makes them uncomfortable when they care about us and we're like talking about how we're feeling and it's not happy and good. They're like, oh gosh, like, how can I make them feel better? Oh, I'll just let them know that I had it worse. So really it's not that bad for them. Yeah. That's going to make them feel better, right? It's like, when you're on the other side of that, receiving that feedback, that doesn't, no one feels better in that circumstance,
right?
When someone's like, well, I had it worse. But it's like, people do that anyway, because I think it's just this, like, knee-jerk reaction to want to fix something, to want to not sit in the discomfort with you. It also makes people uncomfortable when we're venting to them or, like, complaining about something, right? So I think it's like that reaction, and it's just so not helpful. Like, yeah. People just don't know how to help, especially in postpartum. So yeah, I totally, like, that's so valid, because I feel like I got, not necessarily, definitely from my own mother, but a lot of my friends at the time hadn't had their own kids yet, so, like, I feel like they didn't feel like they could really touch on that, which was almost kind of nice because they weren't trying to give me a bunch of advice.
Yeah.
But my mom, oh my gosh, she was so judgmental about certain things, like, that we did that was just different from when she had me. I'm like, totally. Mom, that was like 32 years ago. Like, times are different. But yeah, I totally feel you on that. And I think moms attack moms a lot and do the same thing, where it's like, well, I have it worse than you, and oh, you're doing it wrong because I do it this way, and this way is how everyone should be doing it. But it's like, we all need to be doing what's best for our family, and that's unique to us, like, completely unique to us, and literally no other people on the planet. And it's like, we're so quick to just be like, well, I don't do it like that, and it makes us feel like, well, if you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, does that mean I'm doing it wrong? No, you must be doing it wrong, because surely I can't be doing it wrong. And it just gets really messy really quick.
Yeah, it's hard.
It comes with so many layers, and that's one of them. People always trying to tell you that you're doing it wrong, or that you really don't have it that bad.
Yeah.
It's like, I can be struggling.
Right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, this shit is hard, and I'm allowed to express that it's hard.
Yeah, that's all I want. I just want someone to feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for a minute.
Mm-hmm. Someone to understand that, like, I am actually struggling, and this, is really difficult. Like,
yeah,
that should be, yeah.
I remember one of the most validating moments with my mom was she had watched Delilah And Delilah was probably like 3-ish months old. I think she was probably watching her while I was at work one day. My mom used to always compare us like as babies because, I was the same way. I needed to be attached to my mom at all times and all that kind of stuff. And then when I came to pick her up, she just said, we were talking about, like how the day went and blah, blah, blah. And then she said, you know, she's worse than you were. And like, that was like probably one of the best things that my mom has ever said to me in my entire life. Because I finally felt like, okay, someone sees it. Like, okay, it's not all in my head. It's not just me. And it was really, really special to have that moment with my mom where she said like, yeah, your baby's kind of a punk. So,
I mean, it's like all we want, right? Is like, tell me I'm not crazy. Like, tell me that the experience I'm having is true.
Right?
Like,
yes.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, but it's so hard for people.
Yeah.
But that's I love that. I love that. She's like, yeah, you actually have it pretty hard.
Yeah, your baby sucks, basically.
Well, you're an amazing mom, Katie.
No, she's great now. She's like my favorite now. Don't tell Leo.
Now, yeah, keyword. Okay, last question. And this is a new one. I'm just putting this in here now. So, when you die, I know, kind of grim. How do you want your kids to remember you?
Yeah, like when I was reviewing like our kind of notes, I was like, oh, that's scary. Like I'm not ready to think about that, especially like being this stage of life. So my kids are 5 and 8 right now, and so like a huge part of our lives right now is teaching them routines and hygiene and being responsible citizen of the home that they live in. And like, because like those are things that I struggle with. Those are things that I'm great at hygiene, but the other two maybe not so much. And so it's, I promise. And so like I feel like I want my kids to remember me as like fun and funny and hilarious, because that's how I perceive myself. I perceive myself as just so freaking cool and fun. Like, who doesn't want to hang out with me? I don't.
I love it. I freaking love you.
So, like, I really hope that there are enough moments in between, all of the hustle and bustle of, this like moment in our lives, that my kids can still see that in me. Even though like mom's a huge gremlin, like when it comes time to cleaning the house, like, why haven't you cleaned your room? I left you out, and like, so yeah, that's, I want to be remembered as just like somebody that like people want to be around, and like, yeah, that's what I want them to remember, wanting to hang out with me and be silly with me. Because I'm fucking funny. Like, you might not be able to tell via this podcast, but like, I think I'm pretty dang cool and a hoot to be around. So I really hope that my kids remember me in that way.
That's good. That's really good. I love that. I'm not worried that they won't. You are a hoot. I love it. Well, good. With that, are there any resources that you want to share with the listeners? Like anything that helped you at any point in your motherhood experience so far?
So, yeah, I mean, well, when it comes to like pregnancy and birth, like my biggest thing would be like hire a birthing coach, hire a doula, because it made my 2 birth experiences night and day. And just because I don't know that anyone is ever prepared, even like if you've gone through it before, for what that is going to bring in your life. And having you there was, like it made that experience like magical. You're like my fairy birth mother, and so like it really, if you have that opportunity, um, to do that, and I know it's a big financial burden, but find someone who's apprenticing and then get a sweet deal, because like it's huge, and especially if your partner isn't one who's super like assertive. My husband's super passive and, kind of like, super calm, go with the flow. They know what they're doing. It's okay. So having someone there to kind of be that voice and, that reminder of what you're wanting out of it is really like an incredible gift. So that for sure. So other resources. When the kids were really young and I was working part-time, I found this, I found a website, social media page. I'm not exactly sure. It's been a really long time since I've been kind of active with it. But it's this lady out of the UK. And she's the Organized Mum Method. So like TOMM, Tom for short. But she has just like kind of like a checklist for like keeping house. And she's like super real about it. And she's like, ain't nobody got time for all this nonsense. So this is how we're going to do it. You spend 15 minutes a day. That's it. You're not going to do more than 15 minutes. And, she breaks it down in such a way, and super organized. And so, like I even had the app and I like check things off of the list, and she posts, like different playlists for like the amount of time that you're allowed to be cleaning and stuff like that to go along with it. And so, it was just it was really nice. Sorry about that. That was my daughter again. So that was super helpful in those days where I was home a lot more. And then like if you're going to be breastfeeding, get to know the lactation consultants in your area. If there's not many in your area, the internet is out there, and I am like 1,000% sure that you could do virtual lactation consults, because if that's something that's really important to you, like it was for me, even if it's going well, sometimes you just want that confirmation of things going well. And so yeah, lactation consultants are, angels from heaven, basically, because they are doing the Lord's work. They are really like helping us get through. And a lot of times they were a sounding board for me as I cried and whined about my latchless baby. And yeah, they told me I was right. Yeah, her mouth is tiny, but worked out. And then yeah, like those are things. And like with social media, be careful, I guess. Like I don't want to say don't follow any social media, but like just be mindful of like what you're doing and how often you're on it and stuff like that. Because I found, especially with nursing, there's nothing else to do but doom and scroll, and make sure that what you're connecting with is uplifting and helpful to you, and not necessarily like a beacon of what you want to be, but someone who's like in there, like in it with you, like. But yeah, those are my resources / recommendations, I guess.
Yeah, no, thank you. Those are so good. That's such good advice about the social media, kind of just curating it to be supportive for wherever you're at in postpartum or beyond, or pregnancy or whatever, your motherhood journey. So yeah, those are so great. I'll link the what was it?
The Organized Mom.
Method?
Yeah. I'll send you
cool.
stuff. And yeah, because it's like super straightforward, and like really kind of like makes you bust your butt in like the time that you're given, because it's not a lot. It's wild how much time you don't have as a mom.
Yeah. No, it makes me think of I forget who I learned it from, but someone was talking about like setting timers and then just having that like while your timer is running, like that's your time to do whatever it is you're like, clean the kitchen, pick up the living room and all the toys, or wipe your desk down, or whatever it is, get
Yeah.
something done productive, right? And then when it's done, like that's it. And it really motivates you because you're like, well, shit, I only got 10 minutes. I
Right.
better like get on it. You're not like doing a little bit and then taking a break, and like you're just doing it. So it's like making you be a better manager of your own time, which is
For sure.
yeah, really important in motherhood. When I mean, we still have the same 24 hours a day, but we have a lot more things to get done. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And even though, sometimes it's just like you want to make sure that you have that luxury built in of having just nothing to do with your kids. Like just to be able to be, which is really hard often as a mom because we're constantly going through that checklist of all the things. And so if you have that built in where, like you're just done. I did my 30 minutes today. I'm out, and you get to then just be.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, if you're open to that?
Oh,
this is
yeah.
optional.
Totally don't care. I am super not active on the socials, but you can find me on Instagram, I believe. I think my handle is Mrs.Wheaton_. I'm 90% sure that's
I'm
what
like,
it is.
I was like, I would tell people, but I don't know. I can always just link whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm on there. Like
I'll link it.
there's not much to see, but enjoy it anyway.
It's just more of like if someone really resonates with your story.
Totally,
and
yeah.
I have a question for like a burning mom question.
Ask
or
me
something.
anything. I'm literally an open book. I make it super awkward when I meet people. They're like, oh, like, tell us about this, tell us about that. And then I tell them like deep, dark family secrets. And they're like, oh. But then the best thing is I never have to address it again because it happened too early in the relationship to come back to it.
Right. They're like, well, now they know. They know everything
Yeah.
at this point. So
Yeah.
there's nothing left to hide. You either like me or you don't at this point. So
Pretty much.
your choice, because I'm me.
Yep.
I love it. I'm the same way. So I get it. I get it, girl. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Katie. This was amazing. It was so fun to talk to you and hear about your story. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at the.moms.nutritionist and subscribe to this channel to be notified of each new episode. And if you'd like to support the podcast even further, please like this video and share it with a friend or anyone who could benefit from watching. This helps get the word out there, which helps moms heal and thrive.